Everything takes place during the great battle against Boros, which was about to end due to the great exhaustion the Conqueror of the Universe was suffering. Both he and Saitama decided to use their best moves to finish the fight once and for all. Boros gathered all his remaining power and released it in a great energy attack, which sped straight towards Saitama, who responded with one of his serious punches. The final impact between Saitama and Boros was so intense that the planet itself trembled, causing an explosion so vast that the sky was torn open. However, at the instant Saitama sent the attack back to Boros, a great wave of energy was released from the final impact of their attacks and began to collapse in on itself, creating a vortex of pure light that swallowed him completely. Saitama barely had time to react before his body disappeared amid the glare, which was so intense it temporarily blinded him. And when the light finally faded, Saitama was no longer on the ship or among the remains of City Z, but had been transported to another world. Saitama opened his eyes and realized he was lying on ground covered in grass and damp soil, but there was a different feeling in the air, as if he were unfamiliar with the environment. Saitama slowly sat up, scratching his head with his usual expression. What just happened? Did I use so much force that I flew all the way out here? After asking himself that, Saitama looked around and in the distance saw a city with strange, enormous skyscrapers he hadn't seen before. It looks like a modern city, but I can't recognize it. Maybe if I get closer, I can figure out where I am. After saying that, Saitama shrugged and started walking toward the city, but suddenly there was a great explosion a few kilometers away from him which caught his attention. That sounded close. Must be another monster causing trouble. Saitama turned his head toward the crash and saw several aircraft heading to the area, which confirmed for him that there was trouble. So without fully understanding what was happening, he knew that someone or something was fighting, and he had to go do his hero job. Alright, here I go. Saitama began to jog calmly toward the origin of the explosion while he watched the aircraft start launching several projectiles over the area. And as he got closer, he managed to make out a gigantic figure moving through the city's open fields. It looked like an organic creature, but parts of it had been reanimated with technology. It was a colossal kaiju, roaring as it fought against someone with a red cape and a white suit. Saitama narrowed his eyes, trying to focus better, realizing the guy was moving at an impressive speed. Each blow he landed on the kaiju made the ground split into gigantic cracks, while the aircraft around him seemed to coordinate their attacks as if they were following his movements. Looks like that guy's got it under control already, though the monster seems pretty tough. Despite what Saitama said, the monster kept resisting the attacks, so it seemed necessary to intervene. I suppose there's no harm in trying to help. After saying that, Saitama made a great leap to reach the kaiju, impressed by its grotesque appearance. Omni-Man turned his attention towards Saitama for a second, as soon as he saw him in the air, since he wasn't a hero he recognized. But because he let his guard down, the kaiju tried to hit him with one of its powerful tentacles. However, before it could do so, Saitama took care of destroying the kaiju's tentacle with a single punch, leaving Omni-Man impressed. Oops, I think I overdid it a little, but it worked. It's a shame this monster can't withstand my attacks either. Who are you supposed to be? I'm just a hero for fun. I came to help. While Saitama was trying to strike up a conversation with that hero, he realized some military helicopters began firing directly at Omni-Man while using their loudspeakers, over which rushed orders could be heard mentioning the name Omni-Man, and that they had to eliminate him. That confused Saitama a bit since he was completely unaware of the situation and didn't understand why they were attacking him. Are they trying to neutralize him? But he's the one fighting the monster. Why do they want to stop him? Saitama returned to the ground after losing momentum from his jump, watching the situation closely to try to understand what was going on. What he didn't know was that at that moment, Cecil was doing everything possible to stop Omni-Man alongside the Air Forces. In fact, that kaiju had been reanimated and sent by Cecil to face him, as it had just been revealed that Omni-Man was responsible for eliminating the Guardians of the Globe, being considered a danger to the entire world. Saitama stayed still, observing in silence as the aircraft and helicopters continued to surround the area, unleashing direct bursts of fire toward Omni-Man, who dodged each projectile with a speed impossible to follow. The strange thing was that despite the chaos, none of the pilots seemed to aim at Saitama. It was as if they were ignoring him completely to focus solely on Omni-Man. How odd. I thought they were all on the same side, but it seems they want to eliminate him, and he was stopping the monster. Something's wrong here. While Saitama was trying to figure out what was happening, Omni-Man was growing more and more angry at all the attacks against him, so he used all his strength to hurl himself at the kaiju, punching straight through its head. Omni-Man's blow was so brutal that the kaiju's body collapsed to the ground with a deafening crash, kicking up a wave of dust that spread throughout the area. Despite that, the helicopters began to surround Omni-Man again, but this time Nolan didn't wait to take more fire. Instead, he launched himself straight at the aircraft to finish them off once and for all. In a matter of seconds, Omni-Man split one of the helicopters in half, then went for the next and blew it to pieces. Seeing that Omni-Man was trying to kill the pilots, Saitama realized he couldn't just stand by while the pilots were going down. That doesn't look like something a hero would do. Without thinking, Saitama leapt toward the first helicopter, descending in flames, breaking part of the structure with a controlled punch to make an opening, grabbing the two pilots just before the craft hit the ground, and set them down safely a few meters away. Then he launched himself back into the air to catch the others as they fell, moving at great speed through the smoke and fire as if everything were happening in slow motion for him. When the last pilot was finally out of danger, Saitama landed softly among the charred remains of the aircraft, watching Omni-Man hovering in the air with the kaiju's blood on his suit. The silence lasted only a few seconds before the military sirens were heard again, wailing from afar. That guy seems strong, but judging by how he's acting, he doesn't look like one of the good guys. While Saitama was busy protecting the pilots, a figure began descending at full speed from the sky, a young man wearing a yellow and blue suit. It was Mark Grayson, also known as Invincible, who was only passing through the city, but when he saw the commotion in the area, he decided to help. Invincible looked confused to see a kaiju's body on the ground alongside several burning aircraft, wondering what exactly had happened. That's when he fixed his gaze on Saitama, since he seemed to be a hero and might be able to brief him on the situation. What happened here? I saw the explosion from kilometers away. Were you here when it all started? Saitama glanced at him out of the corner of his eye while scratching the back of his neck with his characteristic gesture. More or less. I also came here to help, and there was a giant monster, but that guy in the red suit tore it apart. But it looks like the military wasn't too happy with him for some reason, and he tried to kill them. Mark fell silent for a few seconds upon hearing that. He couldn't believe what he had just heard from Saitama, but when he looked up, he realized the person Saitama was talking about was his father. Wait, what did you say? The guy in the red suit tried to kill the pilots? Saitama nodded slightly as he lifted a piece of burnt metal from the ground with one hand. Yeah, he seemed pretty angry. First the helicopters attacked him, and then he went after them, destroyed them without hesitation. I had to go for the pilots before they died. If I hadn't, there wouldn't have been a single one left. A chill ran through Mark's whole body. He tried to stay calm while his mind refused to accept what he had just heard. It can't be. No, he wouldn't do that. There has to be a reason. Something I don't understand. Before he could keep talking, the imposing figure of Omni-Man slowly descended toward Mark, landing softly on the ground. Mark, we need to talk. Mark looked straight at his father, feeling his voice tremble with confusion. Talk about what? Dad, is what he says true? Did you try to kill those pilots? Omni-Man frowned, avoiding his son's gaze for an instant, since if he answered that question, his son wouldn't listen to him. Mark, this isn't the time for that. There are things you don't understand. The world you live in, the reasons I'm here, everything you know is a lie. I need to tell you the truth about Viltrum. Sorry to interrupt, but I think you should first explain why you tried to finish off the pilots. That doesn't sound like the kind of talk that should wait. Hearing that, Omni-Man turned his head and stared at Saitama with a withering glare, since he didn't want anyone else involved in his conversation. Stay out of this. You have no idea what's at stake. Saitama stepped forward calmly as his cape fluttered gently in the wind, showing a steady look. I may have no idea about your affairs, but attacking people who can't defend themselves is never justifiable, and that I understand very well. Mark looked at them both, not knowing what to say, his mind trying to connect what was happening with what he heard months ago when his father was left unconscious after the massacre of the Guardians of the Globe. Dad, please tell me it isn't true, that you didn't do anything wrong. Omni-Man clenched his fist as he looked directly at his son with a mix of guilt and frustration, trying to hold himself back as he told his son the truth. "Mark, humans are weak. You don't understand the purpose of our mission. Viltrum exists to create order, to unite worlds under strong leadership, not to destroy them without reason. Those pilots didn't understand that. They were just another obstacle to our true mission." Mark looked at him in horror and stepped back. "They were people, Dad. People who were just doing their jobs. They were people who didn't understand the Empire. Everything I do is for you, for the future of our race." Saitama let out a deep sigh as he looked at both heroes. Sounds more like an excuse than a reason. I don't care if you're a god or a conqueror, that doesn't give you the right to decide who lives and who dies. Omni-Man frowned with rage upon hearing Saitama again, so to prove his point to Mark, he decided to attack with murderous intent and silence him once and for all from meddling in his business. Thus, Omni-Man launched himself at once at Saitama at a speed impossible for human eyes to track, throwing a powerful punch aimed to crush the caved Baldy. Thus, Omni-Man launched himself at once at Saitama at a speed impossible for human eyes to track, throwing a powerful punch aimed to crush the caved Baldy. Realizing this, Saitama instantly raised his hand and stopped the punch just before it reached him. However, the impact generated a wave of air around them which slowly dissipated. Omni-Man was surprised to see his knuckles halted against Saitama's hand, whose overwhelming strength couldn't be pierced even by his Viltrumite power. Saitama looked at him expressionlessly and spoke in a relaxed voice. "You shouldn't do that." Despite the initial surprise, Omni-Man didn't back down and threw another punch at Saitama, but again the hero blocked the attack with an open palm without even turning, which irritated Omni-Man even more. After the second attack, the Viltrumites decided to pull back a little, trying to understand why his punches had no effect. "What are you? No human can stop me like that." "I already told you, I'm just someone who's a hero for fun." "You don't look like an alien, but I refuse to believe a mere human can withstand my punches." "And you're not one? That's odd. Judging by your appearance, I thought you were human." "That's none of your concern." "Though I have to admit, it's been a while since anyone tried to hit me with that much enthusiasm." Mark didn't know what to think at that moment. It was evident his father had attacked Saitama lethally, so he wasn't willing to listen to him. "I don't know what you want to tell me, but I won't let you keep threatening other people's lives, Dad." "Don't make things harder than they are, Mark. Our true purpose isn't to serve Earth, it's to conquer it for our empire on Viltrum." "It doesn't matter if the Empire has other intentions. You can choose, Dad. You've defended these people many times during your life on Earth." "For a while, but I'm loyal to the Empire, and you must be too." "I won't join you. I won't serve an empire that despises others' lives." "If you won't listen, then you leave me no choice." Seeing that his son didn't understand his ideals, Omni-Man decided to attack him to show he wasn't playing, and that he would force him to obey. However, Saitama chose to intervene again and grabbed Omni-Man's arm before he could reach Invincible, leaving him surprised by the strength of his grip. "I don't think a father should hit his son to sort things out." "I'm sick of you! I don't care who you are, I'll make sure to eliminate you!" After saying that, Omni-Man flew into a rage and decided to use his other arm to repeatedly punch Saitama in the face, but none of his attacks seemed to affect him, which infuriated Omni-Man even more. "I think that's enough. You're not going to achieve anything with that." "Be quiet!" Omni-Man said as he felt his Viltrumite pride burning with helplessness, while Mark watched not knowing what to feel, torn between the son who still wanted to believe in his father and the hero who was protecting him. "Dad, stop! You don't have to keep fighting! This isn't right! This isn't you!" "This is what I am, Mark! A pure-blooded Viltrumite!" After saying that, Omni-Man flew into the sky while Saitama had him by the arm, taking him with him to continue the fight in the air. Once they were high up, Saitama decided to let go of Omni-Man and keep the fight there, since that would be safer for everyone. The Viltrumite wasted no time and began pushing himself through the air with great force, landing an endless series of punches from multiple directions, thus preventing Saitama from returning to the ground while he attacked him. Saitama used his arm to guard against Omni-Man's attacks, which impressed him since he was really strong. Not enough to hurt him, but interesting. While Omni-Man continued attacking Saitama aggressively, Cecil's drones arrived and began to capture what was happening. However, while they tried to analyze every individual in the area, the drones failed to identify one of them, Saitama, who had no record in the government database. This information reached Cecil, who was keeping tabs on everything happening at that moment because of the threat Omni-Man posed. "Who is that guy fighting Nolan?" "I don't know, sir. Our drones indicate there's no record of him." "Impossible. No one is exempt from the government. Are you sure there's nothing on him?" "No, sir. I'm sorry." Cecil merely sighed upon hearing that confirmation, as he couldn't understand how that was possible. "Well, whatever the case, the guy is fighting Nolan. As long as he keeps doing that, we won't take measures against him, so let him handle it." While Cecil kept watching, the fight continued there. Omni-Man's fury grew more and more intense. Every blow against Saitama was accompanied by his shouts of rage. His fist moved so fast the air burned from friction. The sky shuddered with each impact, and the clouds warped around them. But even with all that, Saitama remained calm and unscathed, aside from the clothes, staying aloft thanks to the momentum of Omni-Man's punches. The Viltrumite looked increasingly irritated and short of breath. His body already showed signs of fatigue, and his gaze oozed pure rage. "What kind of monster are you? I've destroyed entire civilizations, faced warriors who could destroy mountains, but you don't even flinch." Saitama turned his head slightly, scratching his cheek with one finger as he tried to keep himself in the air. "I'm not a monster. This is the result of my training to become a hero, though it's a shame I can't fly." Omni-Man clenched his fists and once more launched himself at Saitama, this time descending at full speed, breaking through the clouds with a punch so powerful it shattered the sound barrier. The direct impact to Saitama's face sent them both flying in opposite directions, creating a shockwave that split the clouds in two. However, when Omni-Man stopped to see the result, Saitama was still intact, floating by inertia as he dusted off his now dirty cape. "You've got quite the temper. Not bad, though it's about time you calmed down a bit." Seeing Saitama acting as if nothing had happened, Omni-Man flew closer and grabbed him by the neck, carrying him straight down to slam him into the ground. However, Saitama slipped out of his grip and planted his feet firmly just before he could be smashed into the earth, making the ground split from the impact. Even so, Omni-Man didn't relent and threw another punch at Saitama, which was once again blocked with ease. "You don't know who you're facing, human. I could crush your skull this instant." "No offense, but I haven't seen you get close to doing that." Omni-Man bristled at the comment and tightened the same fist Saitama was holding to strike harder, but nothing happened. His blow had no effect on him, and he couldn't even move him, no matter how hard he tried. Even so, Omni-Man decided to use his other arm to drive it through Saitama's stomach, but Saitama only shifted slightly from the impact. Seeing that the Viltrumite wouldn't stop, Saitama decided to return the hit and gave him a punch straight to the abdomen without using all his strength. Yet it was still strong enough to send Omni-Man flying like a meteor into the rocks. The impact was brutal. Nolan punched through several layers of ground as he was hurled by the blow, leaving a gigantic trench in the terrain while a cloud of dust rose around him. His body trembled as he tried to stand, the pressure in his chest was unbearable, and his breathing was ragged. "How is this possible? No human should have that strength." Saitama walked calmly up to the Viltrumite until he stood before him, looking at him with a relaxed expression as he listened. "If you keep this up, you're going to destroy half the planet. Don't you think that's going a bit too far?" Omni-Man refused to listen and got to his feet. His body still hurt, but his pride wouldn't let him stop. He launched himself again with a cry of fury, this time attacking more savagely. Every move was desperate. His punches split the ground whenever they missed, and the air warped from the shockwaves. But Saitama merely dodged with slight movements, each dodge another insult to Viltrumite pride. "Stop moving and fight seriously!" "If I did, it would be dangerous for you. And even though you seem dangerous, I'm not someone who goes around killing. Unless it's a kaijin." "No human in this world is capable of killing me!" After saying that, Omni-Man's attacks stopped for a while since his body was extremely exhausted and he couldn't keep attacking the same way. Invincible, who until then had been paralyzed by everything that was happening, finally gathered the courage to approach them, so he flew quickly to where they were. He still couldn't understand how his father had gone so far, nor how that bald man had managed to withstand everything without a single scratch, but he wanted to set things straight once and for all. Seeing that Invincible had arrived, Saitama remained calm, watching Nolan, who could barely stand after exerting himself so much in the fight. That's enough. You won't achieve anything by continuing like this. You're exhausted and your son is here. There's no point in going on. Omni-Man looked at him with eyes full of rage and wounded pride, shaking his head as he tried to catch his breath. Don't tell me what to do! You don't understand anything. You don't know who I am or why I'm here. Saitama sighed and shrugged. Maybe you're right about that, but I can't let you keep attacking people like that. I don't know your name, but thank you for stopping him. I don't know what would have happened if I had faced my father on my own. Don't mention it. I'm glad to help whoever needs it. That's my job, after all. After saying that, Mark turned to his father, realizing he wasn't the image of the hero he had admired all his life. Dad, there's no point in keeping this fight going. There's nothing left to prove. You don't understand, Mark. Everything I've done has a purpose. I came to this planet for a reason. I was sent to weaken Earth and pave the way for the Viltrumite Empire. The Guardians of the Globe were an obstacle, so I eliminated them. It was necessary. That's how our race survives. Conquest is our destiny, and you must accept that. Was that your duty? To destroy the people who trusted you? To kill those who considered you a hero? That's not a mission, Dad. That's an atrocity. After listening to the conversation, Saitama looked more confused. He had never heard of the Viltrumites' existence, or that they dedicated themselves to conquering planets, much less of a group of heroes like the Guardians of the Globe. It became increasingly clear he wasn't in his home, but he didn't dare ask during that personal conversation. You don't understand. Humans are fragile. They destroy each other. They're insignificant compared to our race. Before his father could finish, Mark cut him off, taking one more step toward him. They're people, Dad! People who have lives, families, dreams, feelings, and you say they're insignificant? And Mom, what was she to you, too? A distraction? A tool to carry out your mission? Omni-Man went still at this remark. His breathing stopped for a second, and his gaze wavered at the mention of Debbie. Omni-Man lowered his head, remembering the years with her. The laughter, the quiet nights, the conversations he should never have enjoyed if it had all been part of a lie. But it wasn't. He knew it. He had felt love, even if he would never admit it out loud. She was important to me. More than she should have been. But that doesn't change what we are. We are Viltrumites, Mark. We'll live for thousands of years. Humans won't. They'll disappear and rot. What will be left for you after 500 years? Mark looked him in the eye and answered with a trembling voice, yet with great conviction. I would still have you, Dad. It wouldn't matter if 500 or 1,000 years went by. I would still have you. Those words hit Nolan deeply, harder than any blow he'd taken during his fight. His body shuddered, and his gaze cracked for the first time in years. Images of his wife, his son, the life he had pretended but actually loved, flashed before his eyes. Omni-Man lowered his gaze and looked at his hands, remembering all the blood he had shed for his goal. His rage faded and was replaced by an unbearable emptiness. It all hit him at once, making the guilt impossible to contain. Realizing what he had done and that he tried to attack his own son at first, Omni-Man couldn't bear to look at Invincible and flew away, ascending into the sky until he vanished among the stars, leaving Earth as his son stared upward with a broken heart. Mark stood there with his eyes fixed on the empty sky, not knowing how to feel now that his father was gone. At that moment, Saitama slowly approached and put a hand on his shoulder to try to console him a little, knowing that wasn't his strongest suit. I'm sorry it ended like this, but let me tell you, you were right. You think like a true hero. Thank you. Anyway, I think it's better that it ended this way. It would have been complicated to fix all this mess. I'm grateful for your help. What's your name? My name is Saitama. I work as a hero in my spare time. I hadn't seen you before. Where are you from? Well, that's a long story, so you'd better get ready to hear it. After the hard fight between Saitama and Omni-Man, the Viltrumite ended up on the ground defeated, reflecting on his actions when confronted by his son, feeling so much guilt for what he had done that he decided to leave the planet, leaving behind everything he knew. Now that the situation had calmed down, Saitama decided to tell Invincible the little he knew about how he arrived in that place so that he could clear up his doubts. However, Invincible was left bewildered upon hearing the details of his fight against Boros. Of course, he didn't doubt Saitama's strength, but imagining a battle of that scale was surprising to him. So, you're saying you were fighting an alien who conquers worlds, and then you ended up here when the fight ended? Yeah, sounds crazy, right? I'd be lying if I told you it doesn't, but with all the things that happen here, it's not that hard for me to believe. Invincible stayed thinking for a bit about what Saitama had told him, trying to make sense of his story. But if what you're saying is true, something doesn't add up. A spaceship like the one you described has never been recorded. And believe me, if an invader with that level of power had showed up, Cecil's agency and the rest of the heroes would have known immediately. We would have received alerts or emergency transmissions. Saitama looked at him confused, scratching the back of his neck as he raised an eyebrow. Really? Because that ship was gigantic. So big it covered the whole sky. It launched bombs that completely destroyed the city. There wasn't a single building left standing, and now you're telling me no one saw anything, and nobody heard about Boros or his army either. That's very weird. Saitama kept thinking about the glow that appeared during his final exchange with Boros. Realizing it wasn't a simple coincidence, he'd been transported to some place that wasn't his home. Damn, I think I finally opened my eyes. I'm trapped in another world. It looks that way, but I don't think it would be the first time someone from another universe shows up here, although most of the time they don't live to tell about it. Then that would explain why everything looks so different. Even the cities are unlike the ones I know. It makes sense it would be like that. After all, we're still on planet Earth, just not the one you know. Here, things are more complicated. There are heroes, aliens, secret agencies, almost everything. My father was one of those who helped protect the planet, or at least that's what I believed. Where I come from, there are also many heroes who are run by an agency. At least we have that in common. After that comment, Saitama fell silent for a few seconds, watching the kid closely and noticing that his gaze grew more serious every time he mentioned his father. Now that you mention it, during your talk you mentioned a group called the Guardians of the Globe? Who exactly are they? They don't ring a bell to me at all. Invincible looked away when he heard that question, but he decided to answer anyway. The Guardians of the Globe were the most important hero group on this planet. They were the strongest, the ones who handled global threats and kept the balance when everything else failed. On their team they had Red Rush. He was so fast he could move between bullets. War Woman, she was strong enough to stop a car with one hand. They also had Darkwing, a vigilante who operated from the shadows and used advanced technology. Green Ghost, Martian Man, all of them worked together. They were the best. Saitama nodded slowly, listening with interest as Mark spoke in a tone loaded with respect. Sounds like a good team of heroes. You can tell they were dedicated. They must have saved a lot of lives. Mark lowered his gaze, his voice cracking a little as he went on. Yeah, they did. Until my father killed them all in a single night. Saitama fell silent, not knowing what to say for a few seconds, and he just nodded, showing a more serious expression than usual. I see. So that's why the helicopters were attacking your father, and you were trying to understand why he did it. Exactly. He always talked to me about protecting the planet, about helping others, and suddenly, everything changed. He said he did it because the Guardians were an obstacle, that the world needed to be conquered to become stronger for his empire, and that humans were destined to fail. I wish it were a bad dream, but I know it isn't. Saitama crossed his arms as he watched Invincible, feeling a bit of pity for what he was going through. And I suppose every world has its own kind of disaster. In mine, monsters appear for no reason, and heroes fight without rest. But in the end, what matters isn't just strength, it's what you do with it. Your father seems to have forgotten that. Invincible looked up at him, watching with curiosity. And you? If you say you're a hero for fun, what makes you different from him? Saitama paused to think, looking up at the sky. I suppose the difference lies in why I do it. I don't fight to prove I'm strong, or to conquer, or to control anything. I just do it because I like to fight, and feel I can do something useful. Even if I sometimes feel empty, I keep helping people because if I don't do it, then who will? Upon hearing those words, Mark let go of his serious expression and smiled, recognizing Saitama's heroism and better understanding the way he thought, which made him empathize with him. That sounds more heroic than you think, Saitama. Now I get that you do it simply because you want to, without expecting anything. And that is something this world really needs. Saitama showed a faint smile upon hearing that comment from him. I'm glad to hear it. I suppose there's always time to do the right thing, even if you don't get paid for it. They both stayed silent for a few seconds as they looked at the horizon, where the sun's rays began filtering through the clouds and started illuminating the devastated field. Well, if you're going to stay here a while, I think you could come with me. I've got several friends who could help you understand this world, and if you really are that strong, you could teach me a thing or two, because after all this, I know I'm going to need to get better. Saitama lowered his gaze for a few seconds upon hearing Invincible's proposal, thinking about whether it was a good idea to accept training him. Teach you? I'm not sure I'm a good teacher. Besides, I already have a student. His name is Genos, and he's an insistent but very dedicated kid, although he sometimes goes overboard with being my disciple, and, well, let's just say I'm not exactly the type to give big motivational speeches. I can barely answer him when he starts asking questions about everything I do. Invincible looked at him with a slight smile, noticing the resigned tone in his voice. Sounds like he cares about you. I'm sure you teach him more than you think. I don't know. He says he wants to reach my level, but I don't even really understand how I got this strong. I just trained and ate well. It's not that complicated. But if you say you need to improve, I suppose I can try to help you. Besides, I don't have anywhere to stay, and it doesn't look like there's a Heroes Association here where I can register or anything. Well, there isn't an agency as such, but I should introduce you to the rest. I guess that would be best. Invincible smiled enthusiastically, though he still looked somewhat exhausted by everything that had happened. Then it's decided. I'll take you with me. I want you to meet the one who leads most of the heroes. His name is Cecil. He handles almost everything related to the planet's defense. If anyone can help you understand this world, it's him. Although, he can be complicated to deal with. Cecil, huh? Sounds like the kind of person who gives a lot of orders. You're not wrong. But he usually has good intentions, even if you don't always like how he acts. If he sees you as an ally, he'll surely give you a place to stay and some support. Well, I don't have anything better to do, so I accept. Besides, it would be good to learn more about this place. Maybe I'll find a way to get back home someday. Invincible nodded with a sincere smile, feeling a bit of relief having someone like him by his side, even though he still didn't know how powerful he really was. I'm glad to hear it. By the way, I don't think I've told you my name yet. I'm Mark Grayson, but you can also call me Invincible. That's how people know me here. Saitama raised an eyebrow when he heard it. Invincible? Quite a name. It sounds like someone who never loses. Mark chuckled a little with a hint of irony. I wish it were true. The truth is, I've lost more times than I'd like, but I always try to get back up, even if people think I'm crazy. Saitama smiled slightly at his attitude. That's a good attitude. It reminds me a lot of how Genos thinks. Even though he always ends up destroyed in every fight, he finds a way to keep going. I suppose you guys have more energy than I do. If someone that persistent follows you like that, you must have something that impresses him. That's why I'd like to see you in action more. We'll see. Though don't expect anything spectacular. My routine isn't anything out of this world. Invincible just looked at him with curiosity while he took off into the air to get ready to head to the base, but he realized that Saitama was starting to follow him on foot. Cecil's base is a bit far. We can get there fast if we fly. Why don't you do it? Saitama stopped and looked at him with his usual neutral expression. Fly? Oh no, I can't do that. Mark blinked in confusion, thinking he'd misheard. What do you mean you can't fly? But you have a cape. I thought all heroes with capes flew. Saitama looked over his shoulder, lifting one edge of the cape with his fingers. The cape? No, it's just for aesthetics. It looks good when I walk or when there's wind, but there's no flying. If I want to get somewhere, I have to jump really high. Although it's not very comfortable, I sometimes land in the wrong places. Invincible looked at him with a mix of surprise and stifled laughter. I can't believe it. With everything you did during the fight, I thought you'd be able to fly without any problem. Nah, but I've gotten used to it anyway. Besides, walking also works to warm up a bit. Mark smiled, amused, still unable to process that someone so powerful couldn't fly. But seeing Saitama's calm expression, he understood he really meant it, so he simply nodded and began to propel himself slowly. Alright, then just follow me. The base is on the other side of the city, a few kilometers away. Saitama nodded and adjusted his gloves, starting to run at a relaxed pace while gradually increasing his speed to follow him. Invincible looked down, seeing how Saitama followed him effortlessly, moving at such an absurd speed that it looked like he was gliding over the ground instead of running. No way, he's going the same speed as me, and he's not even flying. During the trip, Saitama took the opportunity to get a better look at the city and its surroundings, realizing it was quite a pleasant place. After a while, they both ended up arriving at Cecil's base, so the two of them stopped in front of the entrance. Phew, good warm-up. I think I needed a bit of running. Invincible descended slowly from the air while watching Saitama stop without showing a single drop of fatigue after all the distance he had covered. I can't believe you covered the whole way on foot. You don't even look tired. It's impressive. I guess I'm used to it, although I have to admit it would be more comfortable if I could fly, but, well, running works too. Mark laughed a little, shaking his head as they walked toward the large metal doors of the underground base. When they arrived, several sensors scanned Invincible's presence, opening slowly with a mechanical sound. Inside, a corridor lit with blue lights stretched deep inside, full of screens, guards, and scientists moving back and forth. Saitama looked around the place with curiosity, taking in every detail. This place reminds me of the Heroes Association building. I think it was built by a weapons expert or something like that. Really? Sounds like someone pretty ingenious. This place wasn't built directly by Cecil, but he's taking care of all the remodels. Is Cecil a boss or something? You could say so. He runs the Global Defense Agency. He basically handles everything to do with heroes and threats to the planet. As they moved through the facilities, several agents turned to look at Saitama, puzzled by his outfit so simple compared to the technological suits of the local heroes. Some whispered among themselves, recognizing him from the visual records of the fight against Omni-Man. After a while, they both reached a large room filled with giant monitors and surveillance devices. At the center was Cecil, the man in charge of running the place. Cecil turned as soon as he saw the two of them walk in, quickly recognizing Saitama from his fight with Omni-Man. It's good to see you're okay, Mark, especially after everything that happened. I see you brought company. That's right, this here is Saitama. He was the one who helped stop my father. If it weren't for him, the city would be in ruins right now. Cecil turned his gaze to Saitama, who simply raised his hand in a casual greeting. Hi. So I guess you're the boss of this place, right? Cecil smiled slightly, noting his relaxed demeanor. Exactly. You don't know me, but I've already seen your moves on the drone cameras during the fight. I must say it was impressive. Not every day someone faces Omni-Man and comes out unscathed. We owe you a lot. If it weren't for you, we would have had a massacre and half the city destroyed. Well, I just did what I had to do. Besides, those pilots looked like they were in trouble, and I don't like seeing people die if I can help it. I appreciate that. Though I admit I'm surprised that someone at your level appeared out of nowhere. If you have any story about your origin, I'd like to hear it directly from you. Saitama scratched the back of his neck with his typical absent-minded air. Well, it might sound strange, but I'll tell you. I was fighting a guy named Boros, a pretty strong alien who conquered planets for fun, but just when I beat him, a kind of giant light formed, and the next thing I knew, I woke up in this world. In the middle of that fight with the giant monster and that guy in the red suit. Cecil was surprised by Saitama's story, although it didn't seem entirely far-fetched that he was from another world after having witnessed all kinds of events. Interesting. That would explain why our sensors detected an energy distortion right before you appeared. We didn't pay it much attention because of the problem we had with Omni-Man. But if what you say is true, then you're not from this universe. Yeah, I already suspected that. Everything here is quite different from what I know. I hope that's the case, because I'll need you to get used to it quickly. Not every day does someone with your power show up, and if you really are stranded here, maybe we can help you find a way back. But in the meantime, you could lend a hand with certain threats. Help? Well, I don't have anything better to do. Besides, I was told there are heroes here. I could join them, although I'm not familiar with following a lot of rules. Don't worry, I can make that not be a problem. As long as you do your job and avoid unnecessary destruction, I'll give you total freedom. And in exchange, I want you to work alongside Mark. He can teach you how everything works here. See? I told you, he's not as strict as he looks. Besides, we could train together if you don't mind. Alright. It wouldn't be bad to have someone to practice with. No, I can't promise much. My training is simple." Cecil interlaced his hands and watched him with a shrewd smile. "Perfect. Then welcome aboard, Saitama. We'll assign you a room right here, and when you feel ready, we'll assign you a mission. It'll be a good opportunity to measure your capabilities more closely. For now, I want you to go with Mark and meet the rest of the team." "Sure. It'd be interesting to see what kind of heroes you guys have here." "Believe me, here you never know what might happen. There's always someone wanting to destroy something." Saitama sighed slightly, looking around. "I suppose it won't be much different from where I came from. There are always monsters and problems, but, well, as long as there's a bed and some food, I won't complain." "I can arrange that easily. Rest for now. We start tomorrow. And thanks again for saving my men, Saitama. I won't forget it." "No problem. That's my job, after all. And it shows you're good at what you do." Once they finished their talk, Mark turned to Saitama to take him to meet the rest of the heroes. "I don't know why, but I think things are going to get more interesting with you here." Saitama looked at him with a certain smile. "I hope so. At least I'm sure it won't be boring to be in this place." After the two of them left the room, Cecil was left watching them with a serious, thoughtful expression. A man who can defeat Omni-Man effortlessly, and who comes from another universe? This just got a lot more interesting. Meanwhile, Invincible walked alongside Saitama down the base's hallways as he explained how the defense divisions and the Guardians of the Globe system worked. Saitama tried to understand what he was explaining, but he got a little distracted looking more at the murals and the lights than anything else. After going down an elevator and crossing a couple of reinforced doors, they both arrived at a spacious underground training field. A pretty large place surrounded by screens and metal platforms, with several heroes training and testing their abilities. "Well, this is where the team spends most of the time. We practice and prepare for missions." Saitama observed the place calmly, noting the number of heroes gathered, all with colorful suits or some kind of special ability that set them apart. His gaze passed slowly over each one until Mark began to point them out. "Let me introduce you to the group. The person over there is Duplicate. She can multiply herself as much as she wants. The guy in the orange suit with gadgets is Rex. He has explosive powers. And further over there is Monster Girl. Don't let her appearance fool you. She has the strength of a beast." Saitama raised an eyebrow upon seeing the little girl transform into a huge creature during her training. "Well, that's something I hadn't seen before, although it reminds me a bit of someone I met." Mark kept walking until he got close to the main group, when he was stunned to see the Immortal there, dressed in a blue suit with yellow tones, his mere presence commanding respect. "Wait, is that the Immortal over there?" "Something up with him?" Mark nodded, still processing seeing him alive again. "It's just, I didn't know he was back. Last time, well, my father killed him." "Incredible. He really lives up to his name." Realizing they were both watching him, the Immortal approached with his typical serious expression, but then smiled slightly. "I don't blame you for being surprised. A lot of things happened and I ended up back." Mark let out a nervous laugh while Saitama looked at him curiously. "Well, that really is surprising. Normally when someone dies, there aren't second chances. Seems the rules are different for you." The Immortal crossed his arms as he watched Saitama with interest. "You're the hero who showed up on camera. The one who faced Omni-Man and made him back off, right?" Saitama nodded calmly upon hearing his question. "That's right, though I wouldn't say it was that complicated. I stopped him so he wouldn't keep attacking the others." Silence reigned for a few seconds, and several heroes kept watching him upon hearing that Saitama was the person who had defeated Omni-Man. However, the Immortal let out a slight chuckle. "If you managed to stop him, then you have my respect. That man was the most dangerous enemy we've had, and knowing someone could face him head-on without failing, that's something I hadn't seen in all my life. And believe me, I've lived a long time." Saitama barely smiled, raising a hand in a show of modesty. "Thanks, although I really just did my job as a hero." "Sometimes that's all it takes. Doing the right thing without expecting anything in return. If Cecil accepted you here, then you're already one of us. Welcome, Saitama." The other heroes approached little by little, greeting him with curiosity. Duplicate extended her hand as two of her copies materialized behind her. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Saitama. I heard your strength is amazing. Is it true you defeated Omni-Man all by yourself?" "Yes, although it wasn't as long a fight as I expected. I thought he'd be more resilient, but, well, I suppose everyone has their limit." "I like him. He talks about beating Omni-Man like it was any mission. He definitely has something different. Monster Girl crossed her arms and looked at him warily, though there was some respect in her tone. As long as you're not another arrogant guy with power, I think we'll get along. Saitama looked at all of them with a slight smile, noticing that this group had a good energy among themselves despite their differences. In that sense, they seemed better than some of the heroes in his world, who were too guided by rank and despised or underestimated those of lower class. Looks like you all get along. That's good. In my world, hero groups sometimes used to fight among themselves. I have to say it's not always like this, but we try to stick together. After all, the world doesn't save itself. The Immortal stepped forward a little, placing a hand on Saitama's shoulder. Listen, I don't know exactly where you come from, but if you manage to beat someone like Nolan, then you have my trust. And if you ever decide to stay in this world, you'll be welcome. Saitama looked at his hand and then raised his eyes. I'm not too sure about staying yet. I want to see if I can get back home, but in the meantime, I don't mind helping you. Mark smiled when he heard him. Then as soon as you can, we could train together. That way we can show you how we work as a team. Training sounds good, though I don't have a complicated method. I usually just run, do push-ups and sit-ups. Everyone stared at him with bewildered faces. That's it? No way. You've got to be kidding. No, seriously, it works. You just have to be consistent. I like this guy. He has confidence in what he does, even if it's simple. While everyone kept chatting, Saitama looked around once more, noticing how that group represented a new generation of heroes, who, despite their losses, were still standing. Despite his carefree, disinterested attitude, Saitama genuinely liked the people in that place, since all things considered, they were different from the heroes of his world who let themselves be carried away by rank. I suppose it's not bad to start over here. At least it looks like there's a good atmosphere. After the Guardians met Saitama, they showed great interest in his combat skills, especially because now he was part of them. Mark let out a slight laugh as he crossed his arms and looked at the training field. He seemed excited about the idea that had just occurred to him. Hey Saitama, now that you've met most of the team, how about we do a little training match, just to measure skills? Saitama raised an eyebrow, somewhat surprised, while Rex, Duplicate, and even the Immortal turned to look at him with curiosity, eager to hear his answer. A training match? Well, I don't mind. I wouldn't mind moving a bit, but don't go overboard. I don't want to accidentally hurt anyone. Relax, we all know how to take care of ourselves here. Besides, I'm dying to see you in action. After all, the guy who knocked out Omni-Man has to be a monster. I'm intrigued to see what you're capable of. You can tell you're strong just by looking at you. While the others expressed their interest in the match, the Immortal raised a hand to get everyone's attention. All right. If we're going to do this, it'll be on the main field, but no attacks that destroy the place, understood? Saitama nodded calmly, while Mark seemed increasingly excited at the idea of testing himself against someone like him. It was an opportunity he couldn't pass up. Perfect! That way we can see how far we are from someone like you. Plus, I'm curious to see your style. I've never seen anyone fight with that kind of calm. Saitama shrugged as he followed the group to the center of the huge field. The other heroes positioned themselves around them, activating the measurement monitors that analyzed energy and movement speed. Even Cecil watched from a control room through a huge screen. Alright, we have visual. If you're gonna do this, I want it controlled. Especially you, Saitama. We don't need a new crater in the base. Don't worry, it'll just be a warm-up. The Immortal was the first to approach Saitama, flexing his arms and looking at him with a more serious expression to focus. Let me go first. I'm curious to feel firsthand the strength of someone who could face Nolan. Fine, but I warn you, I don't usually gauge my strength very well. If it hurts too much, just say so. We'll see about that. After saying that, they stood face to face. The atmosphere went silent and the air grew heavy as everyone waited for the first move. The Immortal launched first, throwing a direct attack at Saitama. His fist crashed straight into Saitama's face, or at least it seemed so, when in reality, his blow was stopped by Saitama's hand. Saitama looked at him calmly, as if nothing had happened. Was that it? I thought you were going to move faster. The Immortal was surprised to see his attack stopped and immediately stepped back, only to then launch a flurry of rapid punches. But all of them were blocked with the same calm by Saitama, who barely moved his arm and dodged effortlessly. Now the Immortal understood Saitama's strength better, understanding why Omni-Man hadn't had a chance against him either. While the Immortal continued his barrage of blows, Saitama decided to counterattack. So using one of his punches, he struck him in the chest, pushing him back with a blast of air that sent him tumbling several meters across the ground. I hope I didn't overdo it. The rest of the team was bewildered by what had happened, since a single move from Saitama was enough to send the Immortal flying. What the hell was that? He barely touched him with a move, but he threw him like he was a rag doll. After a couple of minutes, the Immortal got back up, a little dazed but showing a smile on his face. I expected nothing less from you. Looks like you're exactly as they say. Thanks. I'm glad you didn't end up too badly hurt. After the Immortal was defeated in his training match, Mark stepped forward and took the center with an enthusiastic expression. Let me try now. I want to see if I can at least do something. Alright, though I won't make it easy for you. After saying that, Mark focused all his strength and launched himself at Saitama at an impressive speed. The ground cracked slightly under his feet, and the air rippled from the displacement. His blows were aimed at Saitama's face and torso, but Saitama dodged them at great speed, so much so that he vanished from Mark's sight. This left him perplexed, since he was aware he was fast, but he didn't think it went to that level. Saitama tapped his shoulder with one finger, while keeping his calm expression. I'm right here. No way! What did you get there? You move fast, but you're leaving openings in your guard. If someone stronger hit you there, you wouldn't walk it off. After that comment, Saitama slowly extended his arm, and his index finger flicked Mark's face in an instant. However, that generated such an intense impact that it sent him flying several meters back until he crashed into a reinforced wall that cracked on impact. Though it didn't cause serious harm to Mark. Even so, the team was surprised by Saitama's great speed and strength, who was clearly trying to hold back. Incredible! And he did it with just one finger! Are we sure he's human? No one can do that with so little effort. If I weren't seeing it, I wouldn't believe it. Mark got up again, a bit sore, but with a smile of genuine admiration. Wow, that was amazing. It's like I got hit by a truck. It's ridiculous how strong you are. In a good way, of course. Your resilience surprises me. I'm sure you'll improve quickly if you train hard, Mark. Saitama offered Mark a hand to help him up, showing some interest in his combat skills, since he looked like someone with potential and strong ideals. Meanwhile, Duplicate decided to step in during their chat, multiplying herself by 10 as her copies surrounded Saitama. Alright, now it's my turn. Let's see if you can dodge all these. Clones. Now that looks interesting. Once both were positioned on the training field, the copies rushed in at the same time, attacking Saitama from every possible angle. It seemed they had him completely surrounded and overwhelmed by so many attacks. But at that moment, Saitama tried something similar, sidestepping rapidly to deal with all the copies at once. In doing so, many silhouettes of Saitama became visible, so many that they outnumbered Duplicate's clones, which left her completely perplexed. When the copies collided with Saitama's silhouettes, they were all scattered across the floor unconscious, except for the original Duplicate. Wow, and he did all that with brute force alone? Nice move. You stayed on the sidelines while your clones attacked so you could keep fighting. Thanks, though I think I'll call my match off here. The Immortal smiled, crossing his arms as he watched the scene. I can't remember the last time someone left everyone here speechless, and I've seen a lot of things. Mark approached, laughing with a gesture of sincere admiration. You're definitely something out of this world, Saitama, in more than one sense. Saitama shrugged as he stretched as if nothing had happened. I have to admit, that was fun. You've all got pretty good abilities. I'm glad you used them to be heroes. As they continued their chat, Cecil spoke again over the speakers from the control room to communicate with the heroes. Alright, I think that's enough for now. Wouldn't want you to end up too tired in case something comes up and you have to head out on a mission. Looks like our warm-up ends here. Monster Girl stepped forward, a little annoyed by the interruption, hoping to get a chance to fight another time. What a shame. I wanted to test my strength too. Saitama looked at her with a smile, though in his usual laid-back tone. It's alright. I'll be waiting to see what you can do. After wrapping up their training, the heroes began to relax, while Saitama scratched his head with that unshakable calm that characterized him, unaware that he had left an indelible impression on everyone. The world will definitely be safer with you on our side. You're right. I feel like things are only going to get crazier with him around. Saitama yawned, looking at the ceiling. Well, if there aren't any more fights, where can I get something to eat? I'm hungry. Rex let out a chuckle at Saitama's comment. I definitely like this guy. From that moment on, Saitama felt part of the team, something unusual for him since he generally acted on his own, but he had to adapt now that he was in another world. The following days passed with relative calm inside Cecil's base. Since Saitama officially joined the team, his presence became part of the day-to-day. Although they still couldn't get used to how relaxed he was for someone so strong, he spent most of his time resting or training with Mark, who looked for him almost every morning to keep improving. Cecil watched through the cameras during their practices, satisfied to see that Saitama's presence was bringing concrete results to Mark's morale. But beyond that, Saitama would also be assigned to work with the team on various missions against strange creatures, giants, and even criminal groups, which meant Saitama had a good time working as a hero. However, during that time, there were also things Mark couldn't avoid, like the emergence of Angstrom during his mission to stop the energy machine, as well as his escape. Far from holding him back, that motivated Mark to get better at being a hero, so he fought harder during his training sessions. Although Saitama didn't consider himself a teacher, he enjoyed the practice fights with Mark, as he could physically spar with him and help him progress, something he couldn't do with Genos since, being a cyborg, he required upgrades to his body to get stronger. During those training sessions, Mark learned to read movements better and anticipate strikes more effectively, though he never actually managed to land a hit on Saitama since Saitama was faster than he could imagine. Each session ended with a visible improvement in Mark, something Saitama himself began to notice, feeling a bit of pride in his progress, something he rarely expressed. You're getting better. Before, you'd go down in the first 5 seconds. Now, you at least last 30. Mark would let out a laugh between gasps, knowing it was a compliment coming from him. 30 seconds against you must be a world record. Well then, let's keep practicing. While the two continued their routine, the Guardians watched from a distance, commenting among themselves on how quickly Mark was progressing. Later that same day, Saitama was finishing lunch when his communicator suddenly rang with Cecil's firm voice. Saitama, I need you to come to the command center. We have an urgent situation. Saitama turned toward Mark, who had just fallen to his knees trying to catch his breath. Looks like they need me, right when I'm eating. Saitama hurried to finish his food and then walked through the base's hallways until he reached the control room. There he found Cecil in front of several screens showing satellite images of the city and what looked like a giant monument. What is it now? We have a problem with Doc Seismic. He's a guy who can cause earthquakes using some very advanced bracelets that release shockwaves. Cecil zoomed in on the satellite image showing a gigantic obelisk located in the middle of a public place. He's using that obelisk to get our attention. Apparently, he has a deep disdain for society and is threatening to destroy the city if we don't stop him in time. He could trigger a major cataclysm. Saitama crossed his arms, looking at the screen, and summed it up. I see. Sounds like a bothersome guy. Is anyone going with me this time? I don't think so. Mark is at his graduation, and I'm not gonna ruin it with another fight. That kid's been working too hard since he failed that mission. It's best he takes a breather before he gets overwhelmed and does things wrong. As for the rest of the heroes, they're scattered on other missions, so this job is yours. It'll be quick and direct. Alright, I'll stop him before he causes more trouble. Alright, I'll stop him before he causes more trouble. Perfect. Just try not to destroy the obelisk if you can avoid it. It's a monument. I'm not promising anything, but I'll do what I can. Cecil let out a resigned sigh while Saitama left the room with his usual expression, showing no rush, but with that calm that made him seem immune to danger. Thus, Saitama left the base and ran at high speed toward where Doc Seismic was. As he approached the place, he caught sight of the great obelisk where the villain was, at the very top of the structure. I think I see him. Time to act. As Saitama finished closing in, Doc Seismic laughed in his trademark fanatical tone from the top of the obelisk, his gauntlets glowing with energy. At last! With this power, I will rewrite the very Earth and create a new geological order! While Doc Seismic continued his villain's monologue, Saitama positioned himself right behind him without making the slightest sound, his feet resting on the surface of the obelisk with the same ease as someone stepping onto a curb. His appearance was so unexpected that Doc Seismic barely managed to turn before giving a little jump of fright when he saw that Saitama was behind him, completely serene and with that neutral expression that conveyed neither fury nor haste, wondering how long he had been there. Hey, Professor Seismic, you'd better come down. You're gonna cause a disaster with all this. Doc Seismic blinked in confusion before frowning at what Saitama had said. I'm a doctor, not a professor. I never taught classes for you to call me that. Ah, right, my bad. Well, Doc, whatever you're doing has to stop. There are a lot of people around, and those earthquakes are anything but safe. Doc Seismic ignored Saitama's warning and struck a dramatic pose as the wind rustled his clothes. This society was built on lies, on false foundations. I just want to make humanity awaken with a new cataclysm, and I won't be stopped by some bald guy in a cape. Saitama raised an eyebrow at the bald part, and his gaze grew a little more serious, though he kept speaking in the same tone. Well, the bald comment was unnecessary. Now I really am going to end this. Doc Seismic clenched his fists in fury when he saw his speech wasn't having the impact he expected. His advanced bracelets began to vibrate with growing intensity, while the ground around the monument cracked as if something enormous wanted to break out from beneath the surface. Then feel the power of the earth you've harmed so much! Let magma purify this rotten society! At that moment, the ground beneath them split, and a series of fissures opened in a radius of several meters, spreading toward nearby streets where there were still civilians trying to flee. From the fissures began to emerge giant creatures made of magma and rock, with burning eyes and smoking bodies that roared loudly as they advanced through the flames. Saitama watched the scene with a weary sigh, seeing how one of the creatures lifted a burning car and hurled it toward a group of people. I don't like the look of this. Saitama vanished in a blink, and before the car could hit the civilians, he appeared in front of them, stopped the vehicle with one hand, and set it gently aside. Don't worry, I'll take care of this. After saying that, Saitama approached one of the magma creatures and raised his fist, delivering a punch that completely destroyed the creature that had thrown the car, exploding into a rain of incandescent fragments that went out upon touching the ground. Doc Seismic watched in disbelief from above, trying to understand what he had just seen. What? Impossible! My creature shouldn't be that fragile! While the Doc remained baffled, Saitama moved at high speed through the area, getting the remaining civilians in the zone to safety. Once everyone was out of the fissure's reach, Saitama reappeared right in front of another magma creature, which tried to crush him with one of its huge hands of molten rock. But the blow simply stopped the instant it touched the hero's head, as if it had collided with something immovable. And then Saitama struck back quickly, making the creature explode into 1,000 pieces again. As soon as he defeated it, another creature tried to flank him from behind, but Saitama turned his head and let out another punch that shattered it completely. Doc Seismic began to sweat as he saw his creatures torn apart without any effort. He felt his plan slipping away along with all his hard work. This can't be! They are beings forged with the power of the core! They were invincible! They shouldn't be defeated so fast! Cornered, Doc Seismic used his bracelet's full power to bring a wave of magma creatures from the fissures, which charged at Saitama as a group. But far from retreating, Saitama met them head-on with one of his attacks. Normal, consecutive punches. After saying that, Saitama threw a great number of punches into the air, which struck each of the creatures, smashing them to pieces with a single hit. Doc Seismic was left open-mouthed after witnessing such a feat. He couldn't believe an entire group of those creatures had been destroyed so simply. However, before he could do anything else, Saitama reappeared behind him again, showing no signs of exhaustion. Well, Doc, looks like your monsters melt easily. You should try something more durable. Doc Seismic spun around, startled to see him so close again. His breathing turned ragged and he took a couple of steps back. You don't understand anything! My cause is just! I seek to rebuild the world, and you, insolent, bald man, stand in the way of humanity's rebirth! Saitama just sighed and crossed his arms upon hearing that. Look, I don't have anything against your weird speeches, but the people down there don't seem very interested in your rebirth. They're just running so they don't die, and that's reason enough for me to bring you down from here. The Doc tried to activate his gauntlets again, but before he could generate another seismic wave, Saitama lifted a finger and tapped one of the metal bracelets on his arm, which broke instantly at that touch. Doc Seismic froze, seeing how his invention was destroyed with ease. Oh, what did you do? Nothing. Just made sure you won't use the same trick again. That's not possible! My gauntlets are very resistant! Not even an explosion could... Before he finished his sentence, Saitama destroyed the Doc's other gauntlet, leaving him totally vulnerable. Saitama looked at him calmly while the Doc trembled, unable to decide whether he was more terrified or frustrated by the hero's strength. Without your gauntlets, you can't keep playing with the Earth. This ends here. Doc Seismic screamed in frustration and, in a last attempt, lunged at Saitama, but Saitama felled him with a single punch, leaving him completely unconscious. One punch was enough to finish this, again. Now that there was no danger, the civilians who had been watching from a safe distance began to come out of their hiding places. Some were still trembling from the fear of the tremor and the chaos they had witnessed. But seeing Saitama standing there without a scratch, with that calm expression, many approached to show their gratitude. "Sir, thank you for saving us. I thought we weren't going to make it out of here alive."
"You saved us from being crushed. Those tremors would have swallowed us up. We owe you our lives."
"Don't worry, I just did what I had to do. But you should move away from here. There are still several fissures around." After saying that, Saitama grabbed Doc Seismic by the collar of his suit and started running back to the base, leaving a trail of dust behind him. The trip was short for someone at his speed, so after a while he arrived right at the entrance of the Global Defense Agency's main facility. When he went in, several agents at the reception fell silent upon seeing the bald hero dragging, without effort, the villain who had been most wanted a little while ago. Saitama glanced sideways at them, a bit confused by everyone's reaction. "Hey, where do you want me to leave this guy?"
"Is that Doc Seismic?"
"Yep, the very same." The agents reacted at once, opening a security door while others in special suits approached to secure the villain with containment cuffs. Before long, Cecil showed up, observing everything with his usual look. "Good work, Saitama. I didn't expect you to solve the problem so fast and without serious collateral damage. That's significant progress." "Well, I tried not to break the monument, like you said, though a part of it cracked a bit because of the monsters, not me." "Believe me, considering what usually happens when there are fights against this kind of person, that's the closest thing to a diplomatic victory we'll get. For now, we'll send the doc to a maximum security cell. That man has caused too many problems with his seismic tech. If he uses his inventions again, he could make an entire city collapse, and I'm not giving him another chance." "Are you going to lock him up for a long time?" "For the rest of his life, if necessary. We can't risk him endangering civilians again." "Well, I guess that's what he earned, after all." "You have no idea how much you make my life easier, Saitama. If it weren't for you, we would have had to evacuate half the city, not to mention casualties. I'm glad it ended quickly. I think I still have time to go buy some things at the supermarket." Cecil let out a faint, almost imperceptible laugh at Saitama's comment. "You really are a unique case. I find it curious that you have that kind of everyday routine and are so effective in a fight." "Well, I'm used to a simple life, but I like feeling the thrill of being a hero, even though I forgot what a real fight feels like a long time ago. I think I get it. After all, you haven't had any trouble against the enemies we have here, but who knows, maybe one day someone interesting will show up and you'll get to fight them. Someone like Mark, for example." "Yeah, he's got potential. He just needs to trust his punches more and stop overthinking when he fights." "Sounds like you're talking like a full-on mentor now." "Nah, I'm just a guy who does this for fun. I'm not a good mentor." "And yet, you've made Mark progress quite a bit. Not to mention you do more than most pro heroes." Saitama raised an eyebrow at that but didn't comment. He simply lifted a hand in farewell and headed for the main exit, while the agents continued securing Doc Seismic. "Well, I'm heading out for now, but if something happens, let me know." The bald hero left the base for the city, walking calmly despite having just returned from a battle that would have been complicated for anyone else. And as he made his way back to the city, the news outlets were beginning to broadcast images of Saitama across various media, since he had saved hundreds of people during the fight with Doc Seismic, becoming an increasingly recognized hero without him even realizing it.